Hey guys, Altcoin Sherpa here with a video today. I am going to be discussing how to find profit targets. To start off, this is not financial advice. I am not a professional expert. This is a hobby. I don't know what I'm talking about. Don't listen to me. Do your own research. If you lose money, it's on you. It's not on me. Okay. So firstly, I'd also like to thank everybody for the support. I hit 11,000 followers today, and I am very proud and happy and thankful for all of the support that I have on crypto Twitter. I, started off pretty much brand new and didn't really know anything about trading, and I was able to learn a lot from a lot of different people who were willing to contribute information and time and charts. And so I'm very appreciative of that, and I'd like to give back to the community. So I ran a poll yesterday, and was asking, what you guys were interested in terms of different topics, and finding profits is always a interesting one. So on crypto Twitter, the target sir ? Is always a meme. Anybody who charts a lot on crypto Twitter has seen this, and finding targets is a confusing, kind of funny question for those that trade, because we all know that trading is a single player game. Trading is something that's very individual and something that is very stylistic from person to person, and no two trades are going to be alike. So when people ask, what's your target, it's a fucking joke, because there's no way that we can actionably give you that information without understanding your setup, understanding your stop loss, understanding your risk, any of that. So the bottom line, starting off before I start this video on the strategy, is that when you ask somebody what their target is, don't expect to get a reasonable reply, because it's impossible to give you that information. There's zero idea that I have on your portfolio and your risk and your timeline and your trade style and all that stuff. So it's really important to understand and learn trading on your own, because it's very important to be able to replicate different setups and not just follow whatever signal group or crypto Twitter personality, all that other stuff. It's really important to think for yourself, is what I'm trying to say. Okay, so with that little rant over, profit targets. How do you find profit targets when you're in a trade? What levels are you looking for? What strategies are you using for finding profit targets? Well, I'd also like to give a disclaimer too, that this video is mainly going to be talking about altcoins, because altcoins is what I primarily trade for ATOMBTC values, although I do trade ALT-USD values quite frequently as well. This video is mainly going to also be talking about longs only, for simplicity's sake, and not shorts. Although the fundamentals still apply. You're still going to be looking for similar setups for shorts, just reversed. Okay, so first and foremost, when you're asking yourself, what is my target? You need to first ask yourself what type of trade you're taking. Are you taking a swing trade? Are you taking an investment trade? Are you taking a scalp? I highly recommend that you research the differences between all three of those trades before you actually take the trade yourself. And looks like I got an alert. Make sure that you understand the timeline that you're trading. That's number one in terms of finding your profit target. Because when you say target, sir, the reason why people, quote unquote, experts can't give you the right answer is because, we don't understand what timeline or what style of trade you're trading. So a quick rundown is that an investment is just a longer term trade that, you're buying off fundamentals. Something like ChainLink, that probably is not going to go to zero. You never say never. And it will just probably keep going up as the years go on. And you're just going to hold and not really worry about short-term volatility or swings. A swing trade is a trade that is usually longer term. It can last anywhere from a few hours to, a few weeks. That's kind of a very popular style of trading right now with the way the altcoin market currently is. These trades can last a really long time, and there's a lot of strategies that you can use within that in terms of leveling profits and compounding, and I might talk about that a little bit later on, depending on the time. And lastly is scalping, which is just basically trading on low time frames. You're in, you're out. Those are quick trades in general, usually not lasting more than a few hours, sometimes overnight. But anyways, those are the three kind of categories that I like to think about when I'm trading. Every time you think about profit targets, it's going to be different for every one of those styles of trading. Investments, you're basically just holding and basically assuming that the fundamental analysis that you do on your coin or asset is good enough to overcome any short-term volatility, and you just assume that that coin is just going to keep going up. Swing trade, you can have profit targets anywhere from 5% to, several 100%, depending on the type of trade that you're doing. And scalps, you're looking usually for a few percentage on margin, and it can go, very, very small. Okay, so what I'm going to be doing here for this format is I'm going to be charting several different altcoins, and then I'm going to be giving some examples on where you could have traded for profit targets depending on the style of trade that you are doing. So here we have a chart of Stratus is an old school coin. I actually bought this thing way back in the day. I sold it, long ago, but you can see this thing has fallen a massive amount over the years. And Stratus is actually a very popular coin right now on crypto Twitter. So what are we looking at right now? We're seeing this massive downtrend followed by arguably 1 year of accumulation. When I'm marking targets in general, I always go from high time frames to low time frames. The higher time frame levels are always going to be more significant than the lower time frames based on the level of trading activity during those times. So for something like Stratus, I'm going to go on the weekly right now, and I just marked this weekly chart. You can kind of see resistance, 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 but you can see this sell side liquidity is getting eaten up, and finally 2 weeks ago we saw a big break. This is undeniably bullish for right now, and I expect Stratus to continue higher. So again, I'm going to be marking levels. And you can see this is like support, support, support for a long time back in 2019, in 2018. Okay, so if I were to take a long on Stratus, say I bought, the breakout at like 5,900 Satoshis or something like that, what are my targets? So again, say I am doing an investment on Stratus. Say I want to do a long-term trade. I think that Stratus is going to keep going higher. I probably would not consider selling until, this is 21K sats or so. I view this as a pretty solid resistance area where price found a floor and then eventually broke down. If I'm swing trading, I would consider selling around 10,000 sats right here, or 11,000 sats. And as you mark levels, you are always going to see other levels on lower time frames. Price is fractal, meaning they show up on all time frames. Here's a daily level where price first hit resistance and then broke down, and again tested that supply zone and broke down again. But I expect price to eventually create a higher low, something like this. If I were swing trading this and I got in around 59k sats, I would probably consider targeting 11k. But again, this is again an example of trading being stylistic. You could take several trades here. There's tons of different ways to trade in general. Another potential trade that you could potentially take right here is support right here around 6,000 satoshis. You could take this other trade right here if you wanted to, something like this. That's another example. So again, finding a target is very stylistic. Finding a target is very dependent on the style that you like to trade in terms of swing trade, investment, or scalp. And you can even scale down even the lower time frames. I personally don't scalp alt BTCs very often, primarily due to liquidity and the volatility. You have to find the very volatile coins for them to be very liquid. Okay, so here is Funfair. This is a coin that basically also retraced huge. And there's many other coins similar to this, something like Holo or Hot, and we can kind of review that one in a sec too. But for me personally, I like to find and categorize my different trades. So I have a pinned tweet on my Twitter profile where I categorize a few different trades. And Funfair would be one where Funfair and Holo would be what these would be two that I would kind of call old dead coins in accumulation. Oopsies. Okay, so here's another example of Fun where price is sitting and ranging for several months. You see for like a 9-month period or something like that, where it really hasn't done a whole lot relative to the rest of the altcoin market. For a trade like this, if I were to buy anywhere within this range of 36 to 50, which I understand is like, it's still significant. It's like a 50% move right there. But for altcoin trading right now, I've been mainly swing trading. For a trade like this, I would basically buy within this range. I probably wouldn't buy right here because it's at resistance, but I would consider, an entry at like 45 or something like that. With a coin that's fallen this far and accumulated like this, I would be looking for longer term trades. So again, when you're marking your levels, always go from high time frame to low time frame charts. That's really important in terms of finding targets. So here, a very solid target might be 110 satoshis, around that area. I expect 100 to have some resistance, but this move right here probably took out quite a bit of the sell side liquidity around this breakdown in June of 2019. So while I expect there to be some sell side liquidity still there, I still think that this is probably going to eventually move. But this is an example of a longer term trade where you might just buy and have larger targets. And one other note too is that when coins like this move, they generally move big off the big spike, just because, and you can kind of see that like right here on February 17th, this thing moved, in the week it moved 142%. And I'm assuming when you scale down to low time frames, it moved that in a day. So that's another style of trade, is this slow accumulating type of coin where they'll have very explosive targets. And another example of this might be Dogecoin, where you're going to see an explosive move up and generally a sell-off very quickly down. But you'll generally see price slowly start to grind back up because a lot of the sell-side liquidity got taken. So again, when I'm marking my levels, I go from high time frame to low time frame. So here are my weekly levels. Then I might go to my daily levels, where I might, choose something along this. That's a 3-day level, but I believe, again, daily area right here, daily level right here. And you can contextualize your targets by straight lines. You could do order blocks if that's what you like. Something you can scale down. Kind of like the last demand area before a break. And you can also contextualize these as supply and demand zones as well. It just depends. It's really the same concept, just understood in different lingo or frames, or however you want to frame it. So summary for a coin like Funfair is that when you find a coin like this that's been accumulating for a long time, these types of trades are generally slower. Like, you might sit in a position for literally weeks or months, and then you might just have to wait for the big spike, on a day where it just goes 100%. And again, it's really important to understand what type of trade and what type of trade setup you're doing stylistically, not just in terms of swing trade versus scalp versus investment, but also your type of setup. And I'm going to also show you a few different types of setups in this video as well. Okay, so Holo is a very similar type of setup to Funfair, but it hasn't moved yet. Again, you can kind of see price has just, it's kind of hard to actually range this. I'm not going to do that. It's better to visualize it with EMAs here, in my opinion. You can kind of see all of these EMAs starting to tighten up. And whenever there's a 50 to 200 bullish cross on the 1 day, it's extremely bullish. And you can kind of see lots of green buy volume here coming in too. So Holo is another type of coin that falls into the same category as Fun in terms of an explosive move. I expect this to move, really big eventually. Again, when marking levels, finding targets. Okay, so what's my target for Holo? This would be a good one, 12 sats. You can kind of see support, and you could call it a weekly order block, whatever you want to call it. Like last demand before a massive move up. And you could just see this area is also resistance back in October before a breakdown, price accumulating. So I would assume that anywhere from 12 to 14 Satoshis is going to be resistance. Swing highs and swing lows are always going to be resistance areas. So 10 Satoshis is going to be another area right here. And after that, something like 17 might be resistance. So again, I'm marking these levels on high time frame charts, and I've seen a lot of people do different colors. This is what I actually used to do. I used to use blue colors for the weekly levels, and then I used to just use black for my daily levels. And so anyways, this is kind of how I would play it, is I would sell at 12 and then I'd sell again at 17. But again, these are the longer term trades, kind of the same as Funfair. You are in a position and you just kind of sit there. These aren't active trades. Raven. So I've been in Raven for weeks or months now. This has been a coin that has been ranging. You'd like to argue that this is accumulation, but who really knows at this point? For ranging type of coins, and you can see range for Bitcoin right now too. But to begin, I guess you ask yourself, what is a range? A range is basically where price consolidates and hits both levels, the highs and the lows, several times. and is usually consolidation. So for a coin like Raven, how would I find a profit target? Again, it depends on where you enter. You might have said, okay, so this swing low here back in March 2020, this is probably a good support area. So, your trigger point, and this isn't not going to be a video about triggers or entries, but just targets. Your trigger point might be, price holding above 210 sats. And where would you target? You would basically target areas where price has rejected several times in the past. So this seems like a very logical area. Around 250 sats-ish. So when you're playing ranges, generally it's pretty hard to break out of these ranges. You'll see once sell side liquidity gets eaten up and there's no more sellers, that's when you see the break. So you might see something like this. Usually consolidation with higher lows is a good sign. So for a coin like Raven, there's several ways to play this again, depending on your style of trading. You could, an okay entry might be something like 205 sats. It could be something like you want to play the bottom of this range, 190 sats. These are all decent entry points if you want to keep playing this range. And in terms of targets too, I also want to note that I'm just using price action, but there's several other ways you can do. You can do targets. Like for instance, this 200-day EMA has proven to be quite strong in general. You could see a breakdown right here back in December of 2019. You could see a breakdown again in February of 2020. And you see a breakdown of it in July of 2020. So, this 200-day EMA is quite strong. And you can always use indicators like this for your profits as well, or fib levels or whatever. But I'm just using price action in this video. And yeah, so again, finding targets for something like Raven, again, it depends on your style of trade. If you want to trade the range, you could do something like this. Maybe you want to enter at like 205 satoshis and you want to go a little beyond. This is something that you might take. You expect something like 195 satoshis to hold, and you might keep a looser stop maybe in case you see a wick down. So that might be a swing trade that you might take. If you're zooming out and you want to take this as a long-term trade, well, obviously Raven has pumped to the heavens in the past. There's a lot of other targets that you can take as well. The most obvious one would be like this 300-ish floor. That was the floor for a while. That price continued to bounce off of, and then it broke through. And again, 440 sats. Maybe something like 660-ish. So these are some levels that I would look at for longer term trades for Raven. And again, very stylistic. If you trade with swing trading with altcoins these days, you can have somewhat imprecise targets. It's not like scalping where you should be fairly precise because you're trading with margin and you're trading with low time frames in general. So this is another example of Raven where you could have played it several different ways. I'm not going to go too much into scalping. I'm not a great scalper myself. I do trade alt USD pairs on margin, but I'm much better at doing slower altcoin trades. If you wanted to take something like BTC, you know, you can scalp. This is like a pretty obvious example here. Like an SR flip. Selling, lots of sell side liquidity, breakdown. Sellers again, breakdown. But an important note is that this held its demand area and price broke through and retested this zone. If you wanted to scalp again, you're going to be looking at other time frames. This area hasn't been tested yet. And price is arguably kind of already in this area now, where I expect quite a bit of sellers to be present. So again, this is another example of a trade you could have taken right here. I have to go back to low time frames. Something like this. So again, profit targets for BTC when scalping, it's very dependent again on style. The last several months, weeks have seen lots and lots of ranging. This is Chop City. Again, I'm not going to go too deep into BTC right now. I don't trade Bitcoin right now. I'm not good enough of a trader to confidently trade BTC. But it's been ranging. You can kind of see it's been kind of tapping both sides. Okay, so I'm going to keep moving on. Okay, finding targets for something like ChainLink. What do you do when something is parabolic and just is on a moon mission like this? Personally, I like to use fibs. So I'm going to fib this entire range of the downtrend. Okay, so here's a good example. You can kind of see when something has gone parabolic like this. You can use fib extensions, and you can actually see that price pulled back here at 1.41, and it pulled back again at 1.618, and now again it hit the two fib. So these fibs have actually been quite beneficial in terms of finding all-time high levels, and you know, support becomes resistance and vice versa. So that's something that I like to do for all-time high targets. But again, if you're doing something like ChainLink, I suspect there's quite a bit of link holders who are just investing in this, so you just hold it and just keep assuming it goes to the moon. But again, stylistically, there's several different ways you could trade this. You know, you could have this as an SR flip. This was a pretty good one right here. I was actually waiting for 650 as an entry, even though I'm already exposed to Link. This is like a pretty good trade right here. You know, hit $8.60, downtrend. Yeah, this is probably a trade I would take, something like this, if you wanted to. Anyways, this is a way to find targets here for Link. Again, here's a different setup that I currently like. This is ATOMBTC. I fibbed out the entire range. And I know people are going to ask, why are you not fibbing to the top? I'm doing it because the levels are respected by the fib with this way that I have it set up. You can see right here that this swing low is probably going to be significant, and it turns out it is very significant of a level. So this is another setup that I use in terms of long downtrend retracements. Atom was incredibly bullish all throughout the fall and then massively retraced while all other altcoins were pumping very strongly. For me, I got in quite a bit later, but a trade like this, if you were to enter on the 786 fib, you can generally expect coins like this to have a high upside. Again, you can trade it however you want. You can take profit here at 35k sats. You could take profit again at 40k sats. You could take profit again at 45k sats. It depends on the style of trade that you like. In my experience, these big downtrends, they at least go to 382 fib in general. And you can read more about that in my article, pinned again in my tweet. So that is kind of this video. I wanted to keep it somewhat short, but I realize that I'm already at 30 minutes now. There's several other strategies you can do with regards to swing trading right now in this current climate. You can take profit and level profit as well. So what I've been doing is basically, I was actually in Atom, and even though I entered fairly late, I can't remember, I think I actually might have entered around 32, like after this SR flip. I think I took some profit at 35,000. I took profit again around 38 to 40. And then I also took profit again at 46k. And I assumed that I was actually kind of kicking myself because I thought that it was going to keep going higher, but price pulled back, and I was fully out by 45. But that's a strategy I've been doing lately with these long altcoin swings, is that you can take profit on the way up, and there are several strategies you can do within that as well. You can actually compound your position if you really like the coin. Something like Link would be good for that. What do I mean by compound? I mean that you're basically buying, and this is not a great example of a good compounding coin because of how bullish this uptrend was, but say you sell this right here. I don't know what the trigger would be, but then you could rebuy 5% lower. And you can just keep increasing your position as you keep moving up. Compounding can be really good, but then it can also really be bad if your coin starts to dump. Let's see, what else did I have? Yep, so those are the strategies that I've been using in terms of finding profits and targets. The bottom line that I want you to take away from this video is that trading is very singular and it's very individual. Nobody is accountable for your trades other than yourself. Make sure that you understand what type of trade you're taking. Is it a swing? Is it an investment? Is it a scalp? And always chart from high time frames to low time frames to find your levels. And yeah, that's basically about it. I know this wasn't exactly precise in terms of what exactly a target would be, but again, it's so subjective and it's so stylistic. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Good luck. Thanks.